The bell sounded, and Ollie was already leaning against the ropes, not from exhaustion, not from fear, but from calculation. The confused crowd alternated between shouts and silence. In the center of the ring, George Foreman advanced like a bull, each blow a thunderclap that shook the air. "Come on, Ali, get out of there," some shouted, not understanding that this apparent retreat was actually the first step in a much larger game. Foreman unleashed crosses and straights, trying to break Ollie's guard. The impact made the champion's body sway, but his eyes said otherwise. There was no panic, there was patience. He absorbed, studied, measured every inch of his opponent. With each round, the pattern repeated itself. Foreman advanced. Furiously, Ali leaned against the ropes, blocking what he could, and responding with quick, almost lazy, but always accurate jabs. "Is that all you've got, George?" he teased, with a smile that burned hotter than the punches. Foreman, irritated, increased his pace. His breathing became heavier. His arms began to drop, millimeters more with each attack. Sweat poured down. His muscles no longer had the same explosiveness. Ollie noticed everything. "Rope-a-dope," he whispered, to himself, as if it were a spell known only to him. Outside, Foreman's trainer yelled at him to back off, but the champion didn't listen. He felt he was hurting Ollie. That victory was just a punch away. That was exactly what Ollie wanted him to think. By the 6th round, George's breathing was like an overworked engine. The punches were coming slower, and Ollie was beginning to respond, with bolder combinations, a straight to the face, 2 jabs to the body, and he was back to the safety of the ropes. The crowd was beginning to sense something strange. It wasn't just resistance, it was control. In the 8th round, the trap was complete. Foreman threw a heavy right hand, but found only air. Ollie's body turned fluidly, and in less than a second, a right cross exploded on Foreman's chin. The dry thud was followed by the impossible. The giant fell. The entire stadium held its breath. 1 second, 2. Foreman tried to get up, but his legs wouldn't obey. The referee counted to 10. The impossible had just happened. Ali stood, arms raised, shouting to the world that intelligence, patience, and strategy had defeated brute force. In the center of the ring, still out of breath, he looked at the ropes where he spent most of the fight and smiled. Ollie knew he hadn't just won a fight. He had forever changed the way boxing would be thought of. Rope-a-dope wasn't just a tactic, it was a lesson in biding your time, even when the whole world thinks you're losing. And there, in the heat of Kinshasa, before thousands of ecstatic voices, Muhammad Ali proved that the ring belongs not just to the strongest but to the smartest. Foreman breathed as if each breath were a burden. Sweat cascaded down his face, blinding his eyes, and his arms no longer responded as they had at the beginning. In the corner of the ring, between rounds, his trainer pleaded, "George, stop going all out. He wants this. Use the jab. Control the distance." But Foreman didn't listen. The roar of the crowd and Ollie's taunts were like gasoline on the fire. "Are you tiring, big guy?" Ollie would say, with that mocking smile, even as he took blows that would have made any other man collapse. It was more than boxing, it was psychological warfare. In the 7th round, Foreman felt something he'd never felt before: doubt. He, the man who'd knocked out Joe Frazier in 2 rounds, was now chasing an opponent who seemed unbreakable. Each time he threw a sequence, Ali absorbed it, returned a precise blow, and leaned back against the ropes, as if to say, "Try again." It was frustrating. It was like hitting a wall that mocked him. The crowd felt the tension shift. The cheers of encouragement mixed with murmurs, some already sensing the giant was being drawn into a trap. Ali, on the other hand, was in absolute control. Every provocation, every look, every move calculated to wear down his rival. He knew he couldn't exchange brute force with Foreman at first. The plan was simple but dangerous. Ride out the storm until it faded into a breeze. And now, in the 7th round, the breeze was beginning to blow. Foreman still threw heavy punches, but they no longer had the same speed or accuracy. His arms dropped a few inches lower, his gaze grew heavier, his mouth stayed open longer. Ollie saw everything. When the bell sounded for the 8th round, Ollie stood up with a different posture. He no longer looked like the man trapped on the ropes. His legs moved more lightly, his torso swayed with more confidence. Foreman, panting, still tried to advance, but now Ollie's jabs were more aggressive, paving the way for something bigger. He was ready for the final blow. On Foreman's face, the expression of frustration mingled with surprise and, perhaps, for the first time, fear. What was about to happen would go down in history, and every second was charged with electricity. Anyone who understood boxing knew Ali wasn't just fighting, He was about to teach a lesson that would echo for generations. If you're feeling this tension, this anticipation for the outcome, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This will help bring you more epic stories like this. Also hit the bell so you don't miss the next round of this narrative. By Ollie's internal clock, the 8th round wasn't starting, he was exploding. He raised his guard, pressed his back against the ropes, and whispered, "Now." Foreman came in heavy, like a human hammer, rolling his shoulders for a blow that promised to turn out lights. Ollie leaned forward, let the air flow, and touched George's body with 2 short touches that didn't seek to hurt, but rather measured. He saw his breathing shallow, his chin exposed, a hand's breadth beyond ideal, his feet planted too far to turn back. "Come on," he said in a low voice, almost an invitation. Foreman bit the bullet. He threw a wide blow, missed by inches, and in that space lay the turning point of a lifetime. Ollie rotated his hips, planted his back foot, and prepared his response. The stadium oscillated between noise and silence. Sweat dripped in rivulets, glistening under the lights. The ropes vibrated as if they had a pulse. Ali measured the distance and felt time slowed down. He heard footsteps on the stage. The crowd turned into a sea. There was no mystery, just calculation, courage, and cold blood. Ollie saw Foreman's guard open and unleashed a short left to test. The blow wasn't the end, it was the key. George swung heavily, tried to block, but his body wouldn't obey. Ollie took a half step sideways, shifted his weight off his heel, and threw a straight, precise right hand, right where the chin meets the nerve. The sound was dry, like wood splitting. Foreman staggered, his knees wobbled, and for a second the lights seemed to tremble. Ollie didn't pursue. He waited for the return, measured the fall, and launched a short sequence, a touch to the body, a straight to the face, another touch, and retreated to the ropes as if pulling the canvas of a secret. Foreman tried to respond with sweeping blows. A cross flew over Ollie's shoulder, sweeping away only wind. Then came the rehearsed blow, a short, sharp right hand, just in time with his opponent's weight falling forward. It was like flipping a circuit breaker. Foreman lost his footing on the inside before he lost it on his feet, and the ring held its breath with them. Foreman fell as if someone had pulled the rug out from under him. It wasn't a quick tumble. It was a heavy, slow fall, his body trying to negotiate gravity. His torso gave way, his arms sought support in nothingness, his knees buckled like doors that wouldn't close. The referee began counting, and each number sounded like a distant bell. 1, 2, 3. Foreman rolled his eyes, reached for the rope, tried to lift the weight of his own name. 4, 5. His chest heaved deeply, and sweat formed rivulets. On his face. 6, 7. His legs obeyed for a moment and almost lifted him. 8. He rose half a length, but the world spun. 9. The ring tilted. 10. The sound that came next overwhelmed the stadium. It was the explosion of thousands of voices, a storm of raised arms. There he stood, restrained for a second, as if respecting the silence that exists even in victory, and then he raised his arms to Kinshasa. Ollie touched the strings with his glove, as if thanking his faithful shield. Foreman sat, dizzy and alone. Corner erupted in hugs, but in his eyes there was something beyond euphoria. It was the confirmation of a plan that flirted with risk at every second. He didn't win through brute force. He won because he convinced his enemy to expend his own ammunition. The strategy had a name, but it felt like a character. The ropes absorbed blows and gave back time. Ollie smiled to the sky and breathed, like someone returning to the surface after a long dive. He approached the center and raised his gloves. Hearing the roar that pierced the Kinshasa night, the world had witnessed a trick without tricks, just courage and calculation. In the locker room, the discharge would come. The words exchanged in low voices, the pain in his arms, the ice on his ribs, the confession that the plan had reached its limit. On the other side, Foreman, silent, would stare at the ceiling, and his own ghosts, and it is there, away from the cameras, that the story changes tone, because winning in the ring is only half the battle. The other half begins when the lights go out, and it moves forward. The stadium became a hurricane the moment Foreman gave in. The referee threw open his arms. Kinshasa exploded in waves, and the ring, surrounded by a tide of people, rocked like a raging boat. Ollie stood still for a second, as if savoring the test, and then raised his gloves to the dark sky. Security guards cleared a path, photographers advanced, microphones appeared everywhere. Foreman blinked slowly, trying to gather memories scattered. On the floor, "Stay with me, George," his coach urged, his hand firm on his shoulder. Ollie touched the ropes with the back of his glove. thanking the shield that hid him from the storm. "I told you so," he repeated, without shouting, as if confirming a map. Over the loudspeaker, the announcer's voice trembled. In the stands, people wept. The countdown had already become history. 8, 9, 10, and the night, finally, applauded. Flags fluttered in the humid heat. Drums beat rhythmlessly and the sweat in the air tasted like victory. Cameras flashed like trapped lightning, capturing shocked faces and incredulous smiles. The night still roared, slow and hot. Down the narrow corridor, Ollie walked, surrounded by arms, towels, and questions. "How did you take so many hits?" Someone shouted. He didn't stop. In the locker room, he sat down slowly, took a deep breath, and closed his eyes for a moment. The doctor approached with the light, examining small cuts, scarred ribs, the tense right shoulder. "Ice now," the trainer ordered. Ice slid down. The skin heaved. "Rope it up," someone murmured, as if it were a password. Ollie opened his eyes and gave a half smile. Planning, patience, right timing. Bandini rested his forehead against Ollie's. "You talked to the ropes, champ. You made the giant talk to the fatigue." Ollie laughed silently, shook his head, feeling the weight slowly lift. "I heard the time," he said softly, almost to himself. And when he said now, I went. The snap of the glove's Velcro cut through the silence. Each sound felt like a memory being put away in a box. Outside, reporters crowded the door, trying to break through the blockade. There, he drank water in short sips, feeling his body respond with gratitude and pain, as if both were part of the same prize. In the locker room next door, the silence hurt more than the blows. Foreman sat with a towel over his head, staring at the floor as if searching for the exact moment the string slipped from his hands. The coach knelt in front of him. "Breathe, George. You hit too hard, too soon." He raised his heavy eyes. "I had him on the ropes." "He put you there," the coach replied, firm and gentle, as if handing back a mirror. Foreman took a deep breath, held it, and released it. "I kept going, without thinking about the end." The doctor checked his pupil, iced his neck, and assessed the bruises that would appear the next morning. Echoes of celebration drifted from the hallway. Every shout outside thudded in his chest. "You'll be back," the coach said. "But now, rest." Foreman nodded, without pride, without defense. "He made me fight the wind. When I saw it, the air grew heavy." No one answered. The clock on the wall seemed to tick slower, dragging the sound, dragging the night. Outside, Kinshasa danced. The streets became makeshift ballrooms. Radios blared with distressed commentators. Children imitated jabs under the yellow glow of streetlights. In hotels and guest houses, people repeated the final blow with their hands, each swearing they'd seen a secret detail. Taxi drivers honked in unison. Vendors raised bottles. Drums beat a new beat for the dawn. In the empty ring, an assistant gathered up the loose tape, or another pushed the bucket. Someone touched the ropes and felt a tremor in them that seemed like a memory. There, now composed, he came out to speak to the world. The body tires. The mind waits. The time comes. It wasn't arrogance. It was a report from the field. His scarred face shone under the lenses, and each sentence bore the dust of the rounds. The strategy had a name, but the lesson was imprinted on the skin. Support the right weight, return it at the right time. Even if the applause died down, something would continue to beat inside those who watched, because that fight wasn't just about boxing, spoke of choices when the world pushes you. In the final chapter, the ring leaves the arena and enters life, and the ropes, which were once shelter, become a mirror of what each person decides to face when the storm persists. The sun rose slowly over Kinshasa as Ali finally pulled his body out of the ring, still vibrating inside. At the hotel door, a boy held up a crumpled newspaper and pointed to the headline that didn't even officially exist yet. "The man who made time tired." Ali smiled briefly and ran his hand through his hair, feeling with his fingertips the map of every blow he'd taken. To get here, in the room, the silence felt like another adversary. He sat on the edge of the bed, took a deep breath, and spoke to himself, as if recording a message for the future. "You waited when they wanted you to run. You entered the fire to put out the fire." The phone rang. Voices mingled with celebration and disbelief. But he asked for 10 minutes. He wanted to remember every detail. The touch of the ropes on his shoulder, the sound of the wind as the punch passed, the moment the other's exhaustion became his ally. There was pride, yes, but there was a cost. Heavy shoulders, ribs singing, thighs burning like a long road, and in the midst of this, the certainty that only comes when the risk is included in the plan. In the hallway, cameras jostled for inches and questions. Was it luck? Was it improvisation? Was it madness? Ollie looked steadily and answered quietly, the way he doesn't ask for applause. It was patience. It was study. It was the courage to stay where no one wants to be. Across the city, Foreman stared at the white ceiling of his room and saw flashes of the fight from angles the cameras don't show. The moment his arms turned to lead, the instant the air grew heavy. The decision to persevere when he needed to. Think, he let me choose the mistake, he murmured, without anger, as if reading a line that had always been there. The coach sat in the chair and for long seconds spoke only with his eyes. Learn, he'll come back. Defeat has muscles too, and they hurt more the next day. Outside, the noise of the street continued into the early hours, and somewhere between the scream and the silence, the city understood it had witnessed something bigger than a fight. Days later, television screens replayed the final blow in slow motion, as if truth resided in replay. Experts pointed out angles, journalists sought new words for an old miracle, and fans debated at small tables with overwhelming certainty. It wasn't just strength. In the empty gym, a coach placed his hand on the rope and explained to a new kid what TV doesn't teach. He turned defense into waiting, and waiting into attack. It's not about getting hit for free. It's about listening to the other guy's fatigue until he speaks up. The kid frowned, looking at the ring as if it were a map. What if I missed the timing? The coach didn't sugarcoat it. It'll hurt, and that's why almost no one tries. Rope-a-dope wasn't born to be a fad. It was born to prove that strategy also bleeds. Every second on the ropes is packed with pain. Every provocation is bait that can turn into a trap against you. The difference lies in having an ear for the enemy's rhythm, and the discipline not to confuse courage with impatience. Ali welcomed reporters into the hotel ballroom and spoke as if offering a compass, not a trophy. People think touching the ropes is surrender. Sometimes it's choosing where to fight. I knew I couldn't beat him at first, so I invited his fatigue to fight me. When he arrived, I was ready. A woman, a longtime fan, carefully held his hand. Weren't you afraid? He didn't hide it. Fear didn't derail me from my plan. It just reminded me why I needed to keep going. On the opposite side, Foreman spoke to his own shadow and acknowledged without a microphone. Today, I learned the difference between beating and winning. There was no humiliation, there was discovery, because the ring, contrary to what they say, doesn't decide everything with impact. It decides with reading. And those who don't read others, write their own downfall. Outside, Kinshasa followed its rhythm. Hanging from a clothesline, a radio repeated in a beautiful hiss the phrase that stuck with everyone watching. The mind is a glove that never tires. What remained of that night wasn't statistician friendly. What remained was the image of a man, leaning against the wall where no one wants to be, waiting for the moment most can't bear to wait. The lesson remained that strategy isn't a trick, it's renunciation. Foregoing immediate applause, bearing the right weight, holding back the hunger to taste now and reap the rewards when the world blinks. What remained was the courage to provoke, without losing respect, to speak without hatred, to win without humiliating. What also remained was the honesty of the cost, because every victory exacts a toll on the body and soul, and the only real remedy is clarity of purpose. If life is a ring that never disarms, rope-a-dope teaches that there are times to advance and times to lean back, breathe, and listen to the enemy grow weary of himself. Not every punch that lands needs a response. Some require calculation, others demand silence. And when the time says now, may your right be cleansed. May the fall be of what pursues you, not of what sustains you. And that, whether you win or fall, you do not betray the plan that keeps you standing.